fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery.
All right, you're back in the House of Mystery, and now joining us is another author that's part of the Larceny and Last Chances, and it's 22 stories of mystery and suspense. It's a Superior Shores anthology book, and it's number 4, so don't forget to look back at the first 3. So joining us, we've got the author of Uncle Randy's Money, which is one of the stories in there, Charlie Kondek. So thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Alan Dave.
So what's going on with Charlie? How did you get involved in this anthology?
Oh, man, gosh. I'm not sure how much background to give you. I don't want to overdo it, but I have been writing all my life, and I've had some successes. I concentrate on short stories. But the last several years, I've worked in public relations, I've worked in advertising. If you or any of your listeners know, advertising, especially in advertising agencies, can be really volatile places to work. Not only are they prone to layoffs, but they assume, and I'm not a copywriter, by the way, so I was a strategist, but all that said, I have not been doing as much writing as I wanted to. As well, I have a special needs child. I'm a caretaker for that wonderful love of my life. But a few years ago, 4 years ago, I moved by design from advertising agencies to a corporate marketing world that's much more stable, and has been able to get my writing back on track. So for the last, let's say, 3 years, I've been writing in a much more disciplined way, submitting short stories in a much more disciplined way. And then, a writer buddy of mine turned me on to what Judy and Superior Shores does and was doing with this anthology. And I submitted and got in. And I feel I've got a little bit of imposter syndrome. There's some great, really great contributors, and doggone it, I'm one of them. I sneaked in somehow.
Do you like the short story format, or do you like doing more full books like novels? Yeah,
it's one of the things that makes me, I say imposter syndrome with a wink. I really don't feel like I have imposter syndrome, since I feel confidence in my writing abilities. But unlike many of the writers that you meet, and not all of, but many of the contributors to Larceny and Last Chances, I don't have a book out. I have chosen, for various reasons, many of which have to do with just the demands of my life, to concentrate on the short story. And it was also my first love as a writer too. So that happens to writers. Some writers just, they might have a book or two in them. I have tried my hand at it, but the short story for me is where it's at. And so maybe someday, if I accumulate enough good ones, it'd be great to have a collected works. But for now, I am concentrating on the short story and loving it. I've had some successes, and this is my first time being in an anthology. So I am thrilled at that. And what a great anthology to be in.
Did you start out with the kind of a story or a theme, or do you have a character? I mean, because with short stories, I always go back to the Twilight Zone and that sort of idea. And there's like you get thrown into something, take it hooked in and run and that. So do you start with like a character or kind of a story, a theme?
What a great question. I was just talking about this with a writer friend recently, and we both agreed that oftentimes we start with a moment that we'd like to achieve. This friend of mine said, you know what? I love rain-lit neon streets. And oftentimes I'll architect a story on what's going to get me to that rain-lit neon street. And so that's often the origin of a story. But I think that another way that stories come about is, for me at least, especially in the realm of crime fiction, you start thinking about a specific crime or type of crime and start thinking, how would I do this? Where would it go wrong? How would I get caught or not get caught? Who would my collaborators be? Could I count on the collaborators? And so I think that's another place stories come from, as well as wanting to achieve that moment. In the case of Uncle Randy's Money, I think it came from two places. One, the story is a love letter to the late 70s, early 80s Metro Detroit, where I'm from. And so there's a lot of that in it. I wanted to bring to life the kinds of smart aleck, outlaw, beer chugging, cigarette smoking, leather clad characters of that era. And so there was that from a moment perspective. That was what I was going after. But at the same time, I was also provoked by Superior Shore's submission call. The title, the submission, Larceny and Last Chances, and I had been working on the idea of being a thief. If I were a thief, who would I rob? Who's got cash? Who's got what I want? How can I get it, and what will I do with it? And so, long-winded way of saying, I think short stories come from a moment you're trying to achieve, or the characters that follow out of those moments, or from a scenario or a situation you're trying to architect. But then the two can and do go together.
I mean, I get the fact that you like to go out and rob people, and so then you like to, and write about it, right? And not too many
I've
people
said too
are
much.
able. Yeah, they're not really willing to admit that so quickly on air. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Well,
We won't tell anyone.
Yes.
Yeah. We called the police. They're on their way, right?
You'll never catch me.
Yeah.
But the idea of wargaming scenarios is definitely an interesting way of approaching short stories.
Yeah, thank you. I just I think about it. It's A, it's gruesome what you think about, and B, it's comical what you end up Googling or asking about. I called up a buddy at work. I shouldn't be saying this. I called up a buddy at work that has worked in fraud prevention and financial accounting. And I said, hey, this is you know me from work, but I have to tell you, I write short stories. Can you tell me how to embezzle from a company? I swear I mean this in the most professional, I swear this is why I want to know how to embezzle. But yeah, it is comical the paths these take us down.
Then there's a knock at the door.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just hanging myself here, aren't I?
So, we'll talk about this. Is there a meaning in your story then? Is there a subtext, a thought that you want people to get, or is it entertainment?
There is, and I think I'm really happy with the way this story turned out. Something I like very much about the place I'm in now. I'm a little older. Some writers start out younger, and certainly I have been writing all my life, but I'm now later in my career. I'm older and feel a lot more experience and skill, and I like what I write. I write as much to please myself, and of course I want the work to be read, but I write what I think is the kind of stuff that I want to read. And I think I really hope everyone gets this anthology. It's terrific. The contributions are great. I really hope everybody reads my story.
Yeah. Tell us the premise of the story. Like what's going on? Who is Uncle Randy?
Well, tell you what. Let me. Do you mind if I read the first paragraph to you? This sort of the tone for the whole thing. First paragraph, Uncle Randy's Money by Charlie Kondek. Probably they were just men and women like you or I, but in my imagination and memory, the desperados and sunflower maidens of the late 70s and early 80s strode denim-clad, slender, and calibrated as dancers through the sidewalks and driveways of my childhood. Every man looked like an ad for leather coats and cigarettes. Every woman like Linda Rodstad or Toni Tennille. My parents, aunts, uncles, and their friends, including, or perhaps especially, my Uncle Randy. He was my mother's brother, returning to Michigan after a long absence and amidst much murmuring because my grandfather, their father, was dying. From that opening paragraph, the whole thing follows that trajectory. There's a couple of key words in that opening paragraph, including memory and imagination. The story is about a boy whose mysterious outlaw uncle comes home to Metro Detroit on the occasion of his grandfather, his father, the boy's grandfather's death, and the mystery that surrounds this uncle. The boy is trying to penetrate that mystery, finding out, who is this uncle and what does he do and why is everybody so kind of upset when he comes around and that kind of thing. And as he does so, he's not just trying to penetrate the mystery of his uncle, whom he loves and he's attracted to his uncle's lifestyle and his uncle's legend. He's not just trying to penetrate the mystery of who his uncle is and what his uncle's doing, but he is trying to penetrate the mystery of adulthood. The boy's about 12 years old. Who is he becoming? And that means who is he potentially going to become as an adult? Who is he potentially going to become as a member of his family? And there's a subtext there because I'm a Polish American guy. I always say that I could never write a book about being Polish. I could probably manage a funny essay. But, this kid is surrounded by this Polish Catholic family in late 70s, early 80s Detroit, and it brings to mind those characters. And so he's trying to determine, as part of that investigation, what's his role in that? Where does he line up with all these blue collar guys? And there's a religious subtext too. You can't write about the Polish American or the Polish Detroit experience without touching on the Catholicism and the spirituality that pervades that. So the boys got to evaluate where is religion and all of that. I didn't say this, Alan, and Dave, when I started off, but there's explicitly or implicitly, I'm a person of faith, and there's always a religious aspect to my work, whether I can put it front and center, or sometimes it's only implied or investigated. So much so that I've often thought of my work as like either Christian crime or Christian noir, but that's I think that's also something I'd want any of the readers to pick up on.
What do you get out of these stories? Like, what does it do for you?
What a great question. When I was younger, now there's that great John Lennon line, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. My intention was always, I've had a wonderful professional career. I've always wanted to be a writer all of my life, but maybe it's because I'm a practical kid from Metro Detroit. Nobody goes to writer school and graduates with a job in writing and gets a job at the Writer Corporation, right? Every writer's got a day job. I had to decide, what kind of writer do you want to be? Do you want to be one of those writers that goes and teaches literature at a university, or do you want to try to get some kind of job and write on the side? And the latter was what I've done, and I've had a really great career. I've been able to work in the, I think, commercial application of writing in public relations and advertising, things like that. But all of that said, it was, my plans, I always wanted to be a writer, and my plans for my writing didn't conform to my plan. I didn't publish a book when I was 25 or start placing short stories when I was 30 and things like that, right? I've had some success. I appeared at my work has appeared at some niche magazines and some small, either genre or literary zines. Never did get to that book, or I did get to that book, but then had kids and, all of that stuff. So all of that is to say, it's caused me to reevaluate why I write in the first place and what I want to get, which was the answer, which was your question, Al. What do I get out of writing? And I think it's changed. I think when I was younger, I obeyed the muse, wanted some of the either notoriety or fame or infamy that comes with it. The older I've gotten, the more I'm just grateful to be participating. Does that make sense? I'm just grateful to be participating. And I can tell you, that's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to let go of that. Everybody wants to be read, but it's a good feeling to let go of that ambition for fame and just be happy to, happy to be able to be part of that experience.
Yeah, it got me out of prostitution. That's it.
Here I am dropping all this heavy stuff on you guys, and then
That's all right. That's what I do. I bring this stuff down.
I love it. I appreciate it.
Well, speaking of participating, for those who are working now, and there are a lot of people, and people come to me and they tell me, and I'm sure this happens to a lot of writers, is they're like, oh, I'm gonna write when I retire, and and usually, that doesn't happen. It does happen from time to time, but how do you make the time to write with a busy job, and how do you find the energy to do that? And I think that'd be helpful to a lot of people who are kind of, they want to do this, but they don't think they really have the time to do it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I got to tell you, having gotten into a better place professionally helped. Getting out of prostitution. No, I'm kidding. And I have had to get I've always had kind of a lot of energy, and unfortunately a lot of my energy was going into my professional pursuits, but reapplying that energy, I've gotten into some good habits, especially as things are going better for me professionally. I've gotten into some good habits. I write in the mornings. Sometimes I can only write Dave, that's a great question. Sometimes I only get to write for a half hour a day, first thing in the morning before the demands of the day get on me. I think that's another mark of being an older writer and a writer with my outlook, is that kind of patience. There's also, you've got to have a certain amount of selfishness. There have been times when I've I write in longhand, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I fill up notebooks and then I type the things out and stuff like that. But there have been times where I'm writing and somebody wants something, and I not often, but I pick up the notebook and walk out of the room? Dave, that's such a good question. I don't know what the answer is for everybody, but I think for me, it would start with, first of all, acknowledge the joy of participating. Second of all, be patient with yourself. Third of all, redirect what energy you have, however much energy you have, into a bit more discipline, whether that means writing in the morning or at the end of the day or when you're supposed to be working. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. Some paramedic out there is like, you're right. I don't have to help this guy. I'm working on a story. That's what I think. What do you think?
No, I think, yeah, definitely. You just have to kind of just make the time to do it and, sit down and put the butt in the seat. And
I wonder if writers, I do talk to a lot of other writers. I wonder if a lot of writers bite off more than they can chew.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thinks, I don't know if everyone quite realizes the richness of the marketplace for short stories that exists right now. Al's 110, so I know he remembers these days. Dave, you're 25 or whatever you are.
Yeah.
In the old days, you would be trying to find, and by old days, I mean 80s, 90s, when I was in high school and college and trying to write. First of all, you have to buy the publisher's publisher's marketplace, which is this big, thick paperback. And then if it was some magazine, you want to read back issues. Well, these back issues, you'd find some literary magazine, and you'd like, I want to read some back issues, but they're $15 a piece. What 20-year-old has $15, $30? And then, you were sending all of your submissions by mail. So you would mail off a short story, and 6 months later or whatever, you'd get a rejection note. There's so many more magazines online and those web-based magazines or web and print or whatever. The submission process is so much more streamlined. I guess where I'm going with that is I think a lot of people, when they think, I'm going to be a writer, got to tackle that novel, maybe they should try their heads at short stories instead, or first, to build up that acumen and plug into that rich network of publications that's around us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about, do you like to interact with people? And if you do you do social media? Do you have a website? How do people find Charlie?
Oh, I'm so glad. I've got a website. It is charliekondekWrites.com. That's Kondek. Charlie like Chaplin, KondekWrites.com. I'm all over. I'm on Twitter, probably too much. I'm on Facebook. I would love to hear from anybody. And yeah, I don't have a book coming out or anything like that, but I am always submitting stories. I've got, stuff that's forthcoming. I can't wait to have you read it in various places, and that's where you can find me. And I'd love to hear from any and everybody.
Okay, perfect. Now, of course, we'll put all that up on the website so people can find you easily, along with the anthology, which is out now. I guess they can buy it anywhere. And we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Great show. Great show.
Hey, Charlotte.
This has been a production of the House of Mystery Radio Show. To find out more about our show, guests, or hosts, go to our website at houseofmysteryradio.com.